Welcome to the MFR Coaches podcast, where we talk about how you can create a six-figure MFR practice. I'm your host, Heather Hommel. Not only have I been practicing MFR for 11 years, I'm also a life and business coach, especially for MFR therapists. My goal is for you to understand how to get fully booked, how to talk to your clients, and how to make sure they understand what's possible for them with MFR treatment. I'm here to help you stop under-earning, overworking, and burning out. I'll lend support so you can create the MFR practice you've always wanted. Learn how you can do it too, even if you live in a tiny town, and even if you're just starting out, and even if you've ran your practice for years. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I want to talk about something that exists in a lot of professional communities, especially helping professions, but that very few people talk about openly. So I am just the perfect person to discuss this topic. Bullying, intimidation, and invisible rules, and the strange ways success and independence can get policed inside of a profession. If you've ever felt like you had to walk on eggshells in your own professional community, maybe inside a Facebook group or when you meet in person, this episode is for you. Many therapists experience this dynamic, but they cannot quite name what's happening. They worry about saying the wrong thing. They worry about whether they're allowed to offer advice. They worry about whether someone with higher status will correct them publicly. And they worry about getting into trouble. And if that sounds dramatic, think about that phrase for a second, getting in trouble. These are licensed professionals, business owners, and adults with years of training. And yet many therapists still feel like they could somehow get in trouble for speaking too confidently, asking the wrong question, or stepping outside some expected role. That feeling does not come out of nowhere or from nowhere. It comes from culture. And one of the ways that culture gets enforced is through invisible rules. These rules are never written down. No one formally announces them, but everyone learns them very quickly by watching what happens to the people who break them. One place this shows up a lot is inside professional groups like Facebook groups. On the surface, these groups are supposed to be places where practitioners can ask questions, share experiences, and learn from each other, be a part of the tribe. But sometimes the culture inside those groups becomes something very different. People start to feel like they're walking on eggshells. They worry about whether they signed off correctly. They worry about whether they use the correct terminology. They worry about whether they're allowed to offer advice. And when someone accidentally breaks one of those unwritten rules, they might get corrected publicly or kicked out. And sometimes this happens in a way that feels very humiliating. Everyone watching that interaction learns the same lesson. Stay quiet, stay small. Do not offer ideas that fall outside the expected narrative. Just repeat the approved answer. And in some communities, the approved answer becomes very simple. If someone asks about a client issue, the answer is always the same. Take another seminar, get more of this technique, go back to more training. Now, let me be clear, and I've always said this, continuing education matters, learning matters. But when every single question has the exact same answer, something important gets shut down. Critical thinking, professional confidence, and the ability for practitioners to trust their own experience. Instead of developing confidence, therapists start second guessing themselves. They start wondering whether they're allowed to speak. And over time, they internalize the idea that they're just not quite ready yet, just not quite good enough. And this dynamic actually has a name in psychology. It's called learned helplessness. Learned helplessness happens when people repeatedly receive the message that they are not ready, not qualified, or not experienced enough to move forward. And eventually, they might even stop trying. They start waiting for someone else to tell them when they're ready. In some training systems, this can happen unintentionally. Practitioners are told they need more levels, more seminars, more designations, more years, more validation before they can truly consider themselves an expert. But if the goalpost keeps moving, something interesting happens. Therapists never arrive. Expert status always feels just out of reach. And maybe you've hit that, but you don't feel any different. Like your confidence hasn't changed. And while practitioners are chasing the next level, they're not building businesses. They're not building their confidence. They're not learning how to communicate the value of their work. They're not learning how to sell their services. They're not learning how to create financial stability. Instead, they stay dependent on the system that told them that they weren't ready yet. And that brings us to an uncomfortable but important question. Who benefits when therapists never feel ready? Who benefits when practitioners keep spending money on seminars but never learn the business skills that would allow them to build a profitable practice? Who benefits when therapists refer clients away instead of trusting the skills they have already paid thousands of dollars to learn? Those questions are worth asking, right? Because a profession grows when its practitioners are confident and independent, not when they're afraid to step outside the line. Another dynamic that shows up in professional communities is something called status policing. Status policing happens when members of a community enforce hierarchy by correcting, shaming, or publicly challenging people who step outside their perceived rank. You see, this is when someone newer speaks confidently and someone more established, in quotation marks, immediately corrects them. You see it when someone offers an idea and is told they are not experienced enough to say that yet, or they don't know what they're talking about. You see it when people are reminded to stay in their lane. Sometimes this behavior is framed as protecting the integrity of the work, but the effect is the same. Everyone watching learns the lesson. Do not do that. Do not step outside of your perceived level. Do not speak with too much authority. Stay in your place. The problem is that real expertise does not grow in environments where people are constantly reminded to stay small, no matter how subtle that reminder is. Expertise grows through experience, curiosity, confidence, and I say by putting your skills to work. And that brings us to another pattern that shows up frequently in therapy communities: money shaming. You will often see situations where therapists who have been practicing for many years, they see someone newer coming along charging more than they do. And they just think, wow, the audacity of that therapist, right? The reaction is immediate judgment. People say things like, they must just be in it for the money. They're not experienced enough to charge that much. That's unethical. But when you really look at the situation, something else is happening. Many therapists are never taught business. They were never taught how to set prices based on facts. They were never taught how to talk confidently about their work. So they built practices around the rates that they felt were acceptable, in quotation marks. And when someone comes along who has done the mindset work, the business work, and the coaching required to charge appropriately, it can feel very threatening. It challenges the story people have been telling themselves about what is possible. One way to protect that story is to discredit the person doing something different. This often shows up as credential policing, the belief that someone must reach a certain level of recognition or status before they're allowed to earn more money, right? You got to have been in this for more time than me if you're going to charge those rates. The message becomes you're not allowed to earn that yet. But here is the reality. Caring deeply about your clients and earning a good living are not opposites. They go together because when therapists run profitable practices, they stay in the profession longer. They also avoid burnout. They invest in more education and they build stability for themselves and their families. And their clients benefit from that stability, and clients benefit from well rested, non burned out therapists as well. There's one more pattern that explains why these dynamics persist. It's something called crab bucket mentality. And I've talked about this on other episodes, and I'm just going to bring it up again. If you've heard the story about crabs in a bucket, you know that when one crab tries to climb out, the others just naturally pull it back down. No single crab is necessarily trying to be malicious, but the end result is that none of them escape. They all get boiled for dinner. This dynamic shows up in professions like ours too. When someone starts charging more, when someone builds a successful business, when someone becomes visible or entrepreneurial, instead of curiosity, the response often becomes criticism. Instead of asking, how did they do it? People try to pull them back into the norm. The problem with that mentality is that it keeps the entire profession small because a rising tide actually lifts everyone. When therapists charge sustainable rates, the public begins to understand the value of the work. When therapists build profitable practices, more practitioners stay in the field. When therapists are financially stable, they have the freedom to innovate, to teach, to expand what is possible. And that is why I teach business skills to therapists, because independence changes everything. When you know how to run a profitable practice, you stop needing permission. You stop worrying about getting in trouble. You stop waiting for someone else to decide whether you are ready. You start trusting your training. You start trusting your experience, and you start building a career that helps far more people. Helping professionals deserve both clinical excellence and financial success. Those two things are not in conflict, they support each other. Because when therapists succeed, clients benefit. And that's how a profession grows, not through control, not through intimidation, and not through invisible rules, and not through keeping everything status quo and exactly the same year after year without changing a thing, right? But through confident practitioners who believe in their skills and build practices that last. So if you take nothing from this episode, take this. You are allowed to run programs in your practice. You are allowed to build a business that reflects your vision. You are allowed to have as big of a practice as you want. And you do not need permission from me or anyone else to do that. And I'll leave you with a question to think about. If the profession you are in requires you to be less, if it requires you to stay quiet or edit yourself, or if it requires for you to keep things secret, if the people in power seem invested in keeping the profession small, you might want to ask yourself, why? Why would a profession want its practitioners to stay small? And why would you choose to participate in that? Professions grow when practitioners grow. And the more confident, capable, and successful therapists we have in the world, the more people get access to this work. And that's the point. I'll see you on another episode of the MFR Coaches Podcast. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to the MFR Coaches Podcast. If you're ready to grow your myofascial release practice, make sure to sign up for my next free training. These live webinars are designed to help you take real steps towards building a fully booked, profitable business. You can save your seat and find the latest dates at themfrcoach.com/webinar. And if you're looking for more support, the Foundations program is now open year-round. Inside, you'll get coaching, tools, and community to help you get fully booked and stay that way without burning out. One last thing before you go. My brand new book, Your MFR Practice Starts Here, is now available. It's a must-read for any MFR therapist who wants to build a business that actually works. You can grab your copy on Amazon and get your companion guide by going to themfrcoach.com/book. Start implementing right away. I'll see you in the next episode.